I want to say let's start at the beginning. There's a beginning of this and a beginning of that, and then you find out something, and then you find out that, oh, way back there was actually a beginning of something. So I'm just going to talk about the day. And the day was, I had swapped cars with my partner. I had been out kayaking with the kids and got wet and needed some dry clothes. I had looked under the seat and found one of my jackets. I pulled out the jacket and put it on. I was happy as a pig in shit to have it until I put my hands in the pocket. I realised there was something in the pocket. I pulled it out. I quickly had a look and I quickly put it back in. I had pulled out a handful of lingerie. I was in absolute shock. I put it back in the pocket. I say nothing. I go home. I question one of the older boys if they had been out in there with their girlfriend in the car by chance, to which of course he said no. And then my partner came home and he already was spooked that I had taken his car, and he came home very standoffish, shall we say. He walked in and I asked him his jacket. What fucking jacket? That's not his normal mannerism. He's usually very calm, and I've learned that these times that he gets very defensive is usually when he's been caught out, when he's lying. Anyway, I want to know whose lingerie it is, and you can imagine he's cheating. I'm thinking he's cheating with another woman. Who's he taking out with? He's got lingerie in pockets and cars. And then I had a good look at the lingerie and I realised that it was all mine except for the bra. So that was a G-string, a suspender belt, stockings and the bra. I questioned him and questioned him and questioned him and questioned him and questioned him to the point where this is driving me absolutely crazy. I've already thought that he had been cheating on me, and I'd been really pushed into depression over several years. And once it all came out, all of those things make sense and why. Anyway, I go crazy because I want to know whose lingerie, who's wearing it. And I assumed that he had a female that he was having wear it. It got to the point where I ended up moving house. I said, I don't want to live here anymore. You're going to tell me lies. I'm moving away. I packed up and moved, and a couple of weeks later, he had talked his way back in and moved in. Again, I would not let up. I wanted to know what it was all about and why it was in there. It was just a simple fucking question as far as I was concerned. Just answer it, right? Once you answer it, we will deal with the truth. Just fucking answer it. And it was driving me. Once it's driving me insane, it was frustrating the fuck out of me that he just wouldn't. I just didn't understand what was so hard about not saying anything. I'm about to saying it. Anyway. Fast forward a few weeks. I'm again at him. Who are you cheating with? Who is it? What's her name? And he says to me, I like chicks with dicks. And I pissed myself laughing. And I said, and I bet you're going to fucking tell me you're gay next, right? I thought that he was lying. I thought that he was going to use that excuse rather than tell me the truth. I took a full bottle of Valium. I then took off. He left me with our daughter after I'd taken the tablets. He drove off. I took her to her brother's at the high school. I drove off. I went to the bottle shop, got some vodka. I then ensured to find a place safe where I would tape a hose to my exhaust pipe. I get found and not happy to be revived because I had tried to harm myself. I then became a danger to my children. So they put him as a supervisor to make sure that I don't try and harm myself again around them. After that, he moved out, and he took 2 youngest kids, and we needed to be separate. And I wanted him to fend for himself because he never really had. I had been the financier of our relationship, of our family, for many years. He moved into a house that I had access to. I had a key to. And it got to Christmas time and he went away to his mum's on the Boxing Day, took the kids with him, and happened to take my car. The car broke down on the way and we ended up having an argument. After that argument, I decided that there had been an incident where I had asked him for a email that was in his Gmail account, and I had asked him to log into it on the computer to show it to me. He told me he couldn't. He told me he needed to go and get his laptop because it was on his laptop. I know how Gmail works. You don't need a separate computer to get onto Gmail, so something just wasn't right about it. So I kept that in the back here. After that, there was a bit more of an argument, and I decided that I was going to go check his house for this laptop. What's on that laptop? I need to go find what he's hiding. So while I was there, a girlfriend happened to be on she was checking some cupboards or whatever. I don't know what she was up to, but she was checking things while I was looking through the computer and finding that he had signed up to some adult friend meetup sites, and he was advertising himself in his lingerie. I didn't find the lingerie bit first. I just found him in the adult friend finder. My friend then said that she had found something and told me to come to the laundry. She was standing on a stool with her hands up on the manhole cover, and she said, "There's something on top here. Come and hold this while I grab it." So she pulls out a big Aldi reusable plastic bag, and it is chock-a-block full of lingerie, sex toys, magazines for meeting up with transsexuals. He had all sorts in there, and most of it was mine, and I had not noticed over the years, and obviously he'd been taking them for years for the amount that he had. He he had so much of it that it was my stuff. Except for there was a French maid's lingerie outfit. It was a little bit weird. And all of the bras, they were not mine. They were a lot smaller. My bras are a D, double D. I find then on the computer that he is searching cross-dressing videos. I start looking into the internet history. And on the internet history, he had searched teen porn, young porn. There was videos of all sorts, absolutely all sorts. I had always felt there was something going on with me, that he'd been doing something to me, and I couldn't work out what it was. And then I came across the videos he'd watched that were how to drug your wife. There were all sorts of masochistic kind of stuff. Anyway, I happened to see some of the young stuff. I double clicked on something that was pretty horrific. I then rang my partner and said to him, I have found your stash. And he snapped back, what stash? I said, your stash in the roof. He said, go get fucked, Joe. You can fight me for your fucking kids, you psycho bitch. And hung up. I then went to the police station with the laptop, and if I could do it again, I would have gone in and told them about the child porn first, not the cross-dressing. The shock that he was cross-dressing was like, yeah, I can't even explain how shocked I was. Like, it was just something undone. Just, yeah, never in a million years. Then told the police about the child porn and what I thought I saw, what I had seen on there. And they mocked me. They said, just because he's a cross-dresser doesn't mean he's a monster. I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. And they said to me, give him the laptop back. And I was devastated. So I took the laptop and I hid it at home. Somewhere, I can't remember where it was, but I hid it. And went and overdosed. And ended up in intensive care. I was intubated and on life support for the first 24 hours. And then I stayed for another 48 hours, recovering and coming to and making sure that my heart was stable and whatnot. When I woke up in ICU and I came to, I was given court documents. I was given an intervention order keeping me away from my children and from my partner. It was claiming I was suffering psychiatric illnesses and telling the children horrific lies. Trying to harm myself, etc., etc., etc. I couldn't believe it. I got home, and the day I got home from the hospital, I got a phone call from the police. And they said, Joe, we've got Warren here. He wants his laptop, so we're going to escort him over, and you're going to give him the laptop back. So before that happened, I quickly opened it and picked up the camera and went through and took photos of all that internet history. It only gave me 7 days worth, so I don't know what else was on there. It was just 7 days worth. I took photos of it all, and I knew that I needed to keep a record of it. He gets the laptop back. He has my daughter. I am trying to prove to Child Safety, Child Protection that he has had the child pornography on his laptop and that he's searching it and that he needs to be investigated. My lawyer told me to stop talking about it and told me the more I talk about it, the crazier I sound. I have to stop talking about it, and boy, that was hard to swallow. But I stood up for myself, and I stood up for myself, and I just kept fighting for myself and my kids. He had, because of my first attempt, when he was able to call the police after I'd said I'd found his stash, he called the police and told them that I was off on a psychotic rampage again, talking shit about him. And so that's why they mocked me when I got there. I had tried several times to get people, to object, anyone, to have a look at the photos that I had taken of the history. I eventually, my caseworker, it was her first real case on her own, and she'd been a trainee at the start of mine, so she had heard the whole thing from the first time that I had attempted suicide right the way through. And she asked me to come into the office to have a chat. When I got to the office, she said to me, I've been reading through the files, Joe, and there's talk of a laptop. You keep talking of it. She said, and then it just stops. It stops dead. She goes, what's that all about? I said, my lawyer told me that if I keep mentioning that laptop, I'm going to keep looking crazy. I had to stop mentioning it. I said, are you saying that you want to see it? And she said, what do you mean? I said, I've got a all copy of it, all on the USB stick in my car. I will go get it right now. And of course, she did want to see it, so I ran out and I got it and I brought it back in. I had a little those notebook computers, those tiny little ones, with the USB stick. And I popped it in and gave it to the caseworker, and we were sat next to each other. And she started going through the photos. Scroll down. She stopped on one page, and I had not seen this page, or I hadn't taken notice of this page, because I was too busy just scrolling down taking photos. In capital letters, it said, daughter sucks daddy's cock. Another one says, daddy fucks youngest daughter. Something very similar. I may have the two of them a little bit mixed up with each other, but they were both about daughters and daddies. I almost fainted on the spot. My caseworker just ran out. She had my notebook in her hand and she just ran out of the room. She ran and left me. And I'm sitting there, what the fuck? He's got my daughter. What? You can just imagine, what the fuck? So I sit there for what feels like, 15 hours. I think it was around 10 to 15 minutes. And the worker came back in, and first thing she said is, I'm so sorry, Joe. I didn't mean to run off on you like that. I didn't mean to leave you here. She said, I've been to see my manager. We've been on the phone to the sexual crimes unit. They're coming over to retrieve the USB stick. We have also got I'm not sure what you would call them, but it's someone who from their unit that is able to speak to children. They had organised to go out to her school, my daughter's school, and have a conversation with her and see if she was in any danger or anything, untoward. I didn't think so. I hope not. But the fact that what I read was just, I'll never forget it. So the plan was, because he had the laptop back, they needed that laptop. So, ensured a little bit of a game. And that was, I was then allowed phone calls with my daughter from the moment they saw that. I was able to have conversations and ask her if she'd been on the laptop or if she'd been watching any movies, or and I sort of slyly asked where she uses the computer and where it is, and is it in the room or is she and she was able to tell me that it was on the kitchen table, and that's where she used it. So the idea was that, or the plan was, that they go out and see my daughter, and from going to see my daughter, they then go to see my partner. And while they're there, they were hoping to catch him unawares. And once he opened the door, they were going to ask him, of course, to go in, and then to please see the laptop. Unfortunately, they told me he wasn't home when they went there. Fortunately, my daughter was safe. They 100% believe that she's okay. He has never touched her, which, thank God, as any mother can tell you. Anyway, but they didn't get the laptop. Once he realised that what was going on and that they were actually investigating that laptop, he was onto it. And when they had gone up the driveway, he had grabbed the laptop and ran out the back door. And he, at the time, they were up living on 9 acres, and out in the middle of the house was in the middle of the property. So it's a long driveway to get up. He could see them come up. He grabbed it, he later tells me, he had grabbed it, he ran out into the back paddock, and there's quite a few sheds out there. And he hid in one of the sheds until they had gone and until the coast was clear. He then got a hammer and he smashed the laptop into pieces. He went and deposited each piece of the laptop, 4 different skip bins, 4 different shopping complexes, so that they could never be put back together. He told me that a year or so later. He has never once denied that those videos were on his laptop. What he said was they were pop-ups. They just popped up. While he was searching his porn, child porn just popped up. Masochistic sort of stuff that we know that he was doing, that I was suspecting he was doing to me. That doesn't just pop up. I then asked him why, and I've always asked this question. If you were so innocent, and if they were just pop-ups, don't you think that the cyber team will be able to decipher what was a pop-up and what was a search or an actual video watched? And he said, I just didn't need the shit. They were pop-ups, alright? I didn't need the shit. Anytime that gets mentioned, he gets nasty. So I get my daughter back. And then I go to Police Integrity Unit. And I reported the police officers for misconduct. For one, for believing him when he rang to say that I was having a psychotic episode, and instead of and telling me to take the laptop away and give it back instead of looking at it. So they got in trouble. One was a sergeant. He was due to retire. I don't think he got investigated because his retirement, he just left and he was out, and it was just like, don't worry about it. The other, it was Senior Constable Mike Cook from Hayfield. At the time then yes, he was at Hayfield. He was Senior Constable. I think he is now a sergeant. He was investigated. It took a long time. I had to speak to many departments over the whole thing. I got a letter to tell me that my claims of misconduct have been substantiated, and that what happened was correct, and that the officers involved have been retrained as to not have this happen in the future. So that's how he got away with having it there on his computer. Again, he doesn't deny having it there. He says it's all pop-ups. Problem is the cross-dressing stuff and everything, and my depression that goes back and everything. His secret that he was keeping, and the internet stuff that he was searching, it goes back to almost the beginning of when we I think we moved in together properly. It all started, and it just spiraled and spiraled and spiraled, and he was living a double life all the time. I'm thinking I'm crazy. Couldn't work out. Anytime I said, is there someone else you're doing, is you're cheating or whatever, where do I find the time? How the fuck do I find the time? I'm here, I'm there, That was always, oh, here comes a plane. They're really loud. So anyway, this episode is about the actual secret. I'm not really going to talk about it in any of the next episodes. This is just the foundation of what the series after The Secret is actually about. I have to tell the story about The Secret. It's embarrassing, it's shameful, it's something that has shamed the whole family. The traumas involved are more my traumas from him. I'll go into the rest of it a bit later. He may have changed his ways. He may stand for good things. He may be a good person on the outside. That's fine. But if you want to stand, and at the moment he's in a position where he's trying to stand for the public and represent the public. This is something. I'm not trying to attack him with that. It's something that should be acknowledged. He should talk about. If he wants to stay in the public eye, then he needs to explain himself. Explain how he's not the same. Explain the work he's done. The fact is, my life would never be the same. I was made to be labelled to be crazy. I tried to end my life so many times that because I couldn't live with the fact that this man I thought loved me was actually no one I knew at all. It was all, he had a mask on in front of me. The rest of the series is going to be about standing up for myself and the things that I've dealt with along the journey, and the things that the self-discovery, dealing with the traumas and having it affect me so often that I want to just kill the pain. is not a way through. I have stopped hurting myself. I am not going to hurt myself. I have accepted that what is. I can't change it. I am not the person that I was in that relationship. I am not that little doormat. I am not that little person that feels it's been a long journey. And then on top of all that, we have the drugs, because I was a drinker, and he brought the drugs into the house. And so it seemed he liked to keep me busy. He either kept busy or asleep. He ended up leaving me with everything I'd exposed. He ran off to the army, cut his ponytail off, turned into a man instead of a transvestite. Went off to the army, had got himself clean, and found his way. I got left in it, and I hit rock bottom. And one day I realised that I needed to get out, and I asked him for the help. He owed me that. He'd been posted to Townsville, and I asked him if me and the kids could come up for 6 months. I needed a fresh start, and I needed to get the hell out of there to do this fresh start. I figured he owed me. He owed me big time. He had fucked my life right up and fucked the kids' life right up. And anyway, he owed me. I came to Townsville. I never touched ice again. That's over 11 years ago now. I ended up in a relationship with him again. So it wasn't just 6 months. I'm never left. I couldn't stand the thought of him loving someone else the way he couldn't love me. So I figured I was going to settle. And it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't. And it's better, I'd rather be with him than being alone. That's as good as I can get. And that all happened until our daughter hit her teenage years and started blaming our shit life on me and my drug use. And that's when I had there and then, Dad, please tell your daughter why I ended up on ice. And so the story got told to her. And when I got to the part about, here goes another one. I will have a studio soon with acoustics. We'll get there. I forgot exactly what I was talking about because I was waiting for that plane to go past. So anyway, there are so many more people that have these stories, these things they found. I've met many, many women who, have found out that their husband is gay. And that in itself is shock. But knowing that mine was dressing up in my lingerie, and watching the kids' things was just a little bit too hard. So anyway, when she brought it all up, I told her about the part where I was in intensive care and when he went and got the court order. So instead of him bringing them to say goodbye to me in case I didn't make it. Instead, he put a court order keeping me away from them. That is not the actions of someone who loves you or cares for you. When my daughter, I told her that, and at that point she said, "Mum, why the fuck are you with him? Why is he even in your house? Why?" And I told her, better the devil you know, like, fuck, you know, make the most of whatever I've got. And she just wouldn't have it. She wanted him out of the house. Out, Mum. You do not need him in your life. Get him out. And eventually that's what happened. And then my suicide attempts got a lot worse. Things got out of control. And I'm going to tell you in another episode how I dealt with the being labelled crazy and dealt with the internal struggle of knowing that man has some sort of dark side to it. So, anyway, that is the secret. As I said, everything from here is going to be after the secret. This isn't about him. He, as I said, he may have changed. He may be stand for all sorts of things, but it's fine. He still has a past and he needs to own it, and he needs to do something about owning it. Whether, I'm not asking him to drop out. I'm asking him to handle it. Speak about it. Let the people that are voting for him know. That's all I am asking of that. If you're watching this and it's long after the politics, you may find that there's a episode here where he's no longer in politics. But we'll see. Anyway, love to all my fellow women. Keep searching. Keep validating. Bye.